Having preseason predictions and backing them with bets can be a lot of fun and a great way to find value. But sometimes a team like the Boston Bruins can come through and crush your dreams out of nowhere. These are some of the worst futures bets on the Boston Bruins that you may ever hear. Welcome back to Edgework here on the Hammer Betting Network. We're typically live Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time, doing daily picks and previews of all the games that night, and you can track all the picks that we've given out throughout the course of this season on our BetStamp account, which you can find on iOS, Android, as well as on the web. You can find us specifically in there in the Find Better section as Edgework HQ. See all the games, all the player props, and all the futures that we had placed on there, how we've done throughout the course of the season. But, of course, we do have some bets that still have not settled yet, so we're going to get into some of those here today, starting specifically today with some Boston Bruins futures that were placed before the season started with our friends that which you find on the Edgework show here, So Money and Alex B. Smith will break down those, what went right, what went wrong, why were those bets placed as well. And so to tee this one up here, I'm just going to lead it in. Obviously, the Boston Bruins, the President's Trophy winners from this season. They secured that with about 2.5 weeks left in the season. The most dominant team in the NHL this year. Anytime they lost, we basically sat here and said, well, here comes a win streak around the corner because of their level of play. And even in those losses, it was still like the Boston Bruins were playing at that dominant level that they had been throughout the course of the season, of a pillar of consistency and winning and putting up points. They have 60 wins, 12 losses, 5 overtime losses at the time of this recording right now. First in the NHL, 125 total points on the season. A couple futures bets were placed by some guys here on the show in Alex B. Smith and So Money in front of you. So we will go roundtable here and discuss those futures bets. But So Money, I mean, before we even started recording, I brought it up to you. You laughed. We start recording here. You're laughing about it. I want you to tell us a little bit about your futures bet that you had on the Boston Bruins. What was it, and what happened with your futures bet there?
Everything went wrong. This is probably the worst bet that I've ever placed in my life, and now I have to pay for it very, very publicly here. I bet the Bruins to miss the playoffs. Now, reason for that is because I thought that their veteran guys who they were going to have out, they were going to be out longer than they were. Obviously, that wasn't the case, and I felt hoodwinked when these guys came back a little bit earlier. I felt that Krejci wasn't going to be the same player that he was coming back. I felt that their goaltending was not going to be able to sustain the whole season. And also, big thing too is that we've seen in the NHL, we saw it with the Islanders last year, we're seeing it with the Flames this year. Sometimes veteran teams, they just don't put it together. And I thought that with the injured guys probably taking longer than I thought in coming back, sometimes you just go through the whole year in kind of like a daze, and you just don't get it together. So that's what I thought. Now, what hurts more is that not only do I lose the Bruins Cup future, I'm going to lose a bet that was probably one of the best bets that I've placed this year too, and that was Lindy Ruff, Jack Adams. The only reason he's not going to win that is because of this historic Boston season. So they get me in 2011. They get me twice this year. Clearly, this team just has it in for me.
Well, I mean, you say this is the worst bet you've ever placed. Well, obviously, this is going to be results-based here more than anything, because you're sitting here looking at, you bet them to miss the playoffs right now with a few games left in their season, 125 points. So your bet is going to go hand in hand with where Alex is at right now. Alex, 125 points on the season. So Money saying he bet them to miss the playoffs. That's one of the worst bets he's ever placed in his life. You're looking here at your bet that you had on the Bruins ahead of the season. What was it, and was that the worst bet you have ever placed in your life, in your opinion?
So it's the worst bet that I've placed that will actually cash out as a loser because I actually had a worse point total under with the Detroit Red Wings, and the pandemic actually wiped that away. So this will now count as the official worst bet that I've ever made, under 98.5 points for the Boston Bruins. And it's literally the same thing that So Money said. I mean, this is a veteran-laden team, right? Like this core group of Bergeron and Marchand, and of course, Pasternak been coming through lately in the last years, but those guys, and Krejci coming back from the Czech Republic, those guys have played a ton of hockey. Think about it. This is a Bruins team that had only missed the playoffs twice in the last 15 years, and even in those 2 years that they missed, one was a shortened season, they were right there in the wild card race up until the very end. So they've played a lot of meaningful hockey for well over a decade. With the way that they got bounced out last year, it was a 4-3 series against Carolina where the home team won all 7 games. It just looked like, okay, now this team's just kind of lost a step. 2, exits in the first round back-to-back years. And now you got Marchand's going to be, was supposed to be out until like the new year. McAvoy's supposed to be out until the new year. Kudos to the surgeons and the health staff for the Bruins because they got those guys back very quickly, which changed the course of everything. But even with that, when those guys were still out, they were just winning games right off the bat. I'll never forget opening night. I was able to grab like 20 cents in value on Washington before that line closed. And everybody's thinking, oh, Washington's going to be good this year, Ovechkin watch and all this, and then that Boston would be taking a step down. Well, yesterday, the Washington Capitals were officially eliminated from playoff contention, and here we are talking about the Bruins as the best team potentially in NHL regular season history. So, we're not going to hit them all, and sometimes you're going to miss one badly, and this was a bad miss for myself, and I think for So Money as well.
Well, I'm not trying to rub salt in the wounds here by any means. I've had bad bets myself as well. But for people who are just watching along, trying to understand some of the context of this, Alex at 98.5 points for the Bruins under. With 5 games remaining on the season, the Boston Bruins have 125 points there, well over that number there by 27 at this point. And So Money with the Boston Bruins to miss the playoffs with just over 2 weeks remaining in the regular season. They clinched the President's Trophy as the best team the best regular season team in the NHL. So that is kind of some context provided. Now, you guys did say this is the worst bet I've ever placed. Results-based kind of thinking there. This is not obviously the worst bet you've ever placed going into it. I think where you guys were at on this was very much in line with what a lot of people were thinking, especially in the media, around hockey circles, different NHL executives. Maybe they didn't have the Bruins to miss the playoffs completely, but it would be in that wild card. They're going to be pushing for it at the end. Maybe they're the Pittsburgh Penguins of right now. That was kind of a preseason projection of what they could be, and all signs pointed to that potentially being the case. Now, I want to take us back to before the season. So Money, we'll start with you. You're looking ahead. You obviously build out projections and kind of line this stuff up in terms of where you're going to find some of the value on these things. Would you mind kind of discussing a little bit about the number you got? And aside from some of the points of, okay, yeah, we know they're a bit of an older team. There's some changes here. They've been on the outside prior to. What were some of the things numbers-wise that led you to make this bet?
Yeah, so I got them close to 4-1 to miss the playoffs, right? So I'm not. It's not a bad bet in terms of the number I got, because it did close a lot lower than that. And I was also able to time the market before all the news about them possibly missing came out, or that became readily available. So timing was fine. The number was fine. It was, for me, this was kind of getting a jump on the market. I knew that once that information came out, the number was going to start tumbling, which it did. So in terms of the process, you want to jump the market, which I was able to do. So I don't really have a problem with that in that sense. Of course, as it turns out, it didn't work out that way, but those kind of things happen. I joke about it, right? But I mean, I really don't have a problem with the play. Like, you can look back in hindsight for anything, right? But in terms of the process and me trying to time the market, I don't have a problem with that play. But it's just funny that now I have to pay for it publicly.
Yeah, fair enough. And this was your idea, by the way. This is your idea.
Yeah, you know what though? This is my thing though, right? Like I'm very much like, when you make a mistake, you better make sure you pay for it, because now you're not going to do that kind of shit again. So
Yep.
Fair enough.
that's where I'm
I
at.
agree. And then you could take solace in knowing, so money that, I mean, at least you had a ticket that would have paid you plus money. I laid $1.15 on the 98.5, so I feel really dumb in a sense. But it was, and my thing was, I thought, okay, at worst, they could still be competitive late, and they would probably be, like I said, where, Buffalo and Washington would be. That was the thought I had. I thought they were going to be awful early, and then once the guys got back, okay, they still might have a puncher's chance, but they would just fall out and miss and go under that point total. So we were kind of thinking in line the same thing. I didn't think they were just going to be like, oh, they're just going to be so bad they just missed the playoffs altogether. I was like, they just probably wouldn't be good the first half of the season, and that was the complete opposite. If anything, they probably struggled a little bit more now in the last 2.5 weeks than they did the first month of the regular season.
Yeah, and putting that in perspective of what Alex is saying there, where he's kind of saying, okay, maybe they could have been those teams in the wild card spot as well. Like looking at Florida, the Islanders, the Penguins, 87 points, 86 points, 81 points down to the Sabres. Like those teams that are going to be competing for playoff spots here, still under 90 points with 5 games remaining in the season.
And that's the other thing too. That Atlantic division was so tough. No one expected Florida to just fall off the face of the earth early in the year. People thought I thought Detroit would be a more competitive team throughout the year. I thought Ottawa was a playoff contending team. I thought Buffalo would be pushing, which they did, but they kind of fell off late. So it was a combination of other stuff in that division. Obviously you got the powers of Toronto and Tampa Bay. Those aren't going to be moved anytime soon. Florida had just won the President's Trophy, so you figure they'd be in that top 3 mix, and then everything would fall down and shake out. So I thought the wild card bundle we see now in the East, I thought Boston would be a part of that group, not being at the top.
And let's not forget the coaching change too, right? Like when they made the coaching change, it was a surprise, and it was only later on that we found out that it was actually player driven, that the guys wanted Cassidy out. So, I mean, there was a lot of things up in the air there. There was injuries. There was a coaching change. Every year we have a couple of teams, veteran teams, that can't get it together. This year was the Flames and the Penguins. I thought it could have been the Bruins. So.
Yeah, and great point, too, with the coaching change. Not only the fact of Bruce Cassidy being moved out, but bringing in Jim Montgomery, who, I mean, had done a good job in Dallas, but the way his, tenure ended there was obviously very unfortunate. He had to, do some soul searching and get his life together. Then he bounced back, was an assistant under Berube in St. Louis, and then to see him go right into a head coaching job. And I'm like, okay, well, he's been through a lot personally, and now to take this pressure-filled spot, or at least what we thought would be a pressure-filled spot of having to lead a Bruins team that had been winning for so long and playing consistent hockey, but now missing stars, having to kind of get up used to a new lineup. I thought all of that shakeup would be kind of where it's going to take time for them to gel together, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah, and I mean, on top of that, you guys are even haven't you mentioned here the fact that their goaltender all of a sudden has a Vezina caliber season in Ullmark, and it's not to say that he was going to be a bad goalie this year, but I don't think that that's projected by anyone. You kind of end up a product of your environment. You play with a team that's playing so well in front of you, it's going to help you out a little bit, but nonetheless, the guy has been incredible this season. So just kind of. Yeah. Just to add a little bit on there to where you guys are at.
Linus Ullmark's highlight tape in Buffalo is probably about 2 minutes long, so nobody ever thought that this guy would be a Vezina, trophy finalist, let alone possibly more than likely going to win.
2 minutes might be generous.
Yeah. So
the only thing that's going to make me feel better about this is if the Leafs do their job.
Yeah, well, don't bank on that. Please don't bank on that. That's the last thing I'd like for you to be hanging
second
over
round,
my
Zach.
head.
Second round, I'm looking right at you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I can't wait for the second round to come and have that kind of pressure on me now for this to go well. But I mean, we kind of recapped the futures bets there. What went wrong in terms of these? So money with the Boston Bruins to miss the playoffs. Alex with the under 98.5 points on the season. I'm gonna ask you guys one last thing about this Bruins team going forward. This season, have you learned your lesson on the Bruins? Are you going to be fading them moving forward? Where are you kind of at in terms of projecting them and success that they could have in the playoffs? So Money, let's start with you. Your thoughts on the Bruins moving forward.
So it's about matchups, right? Playoffs are always about matchups. If they play the Penguins in the first round, I think they're fine. If they play Florida in the first round, I think they're fine. If they play the Islanders at any point during the Eastern Conference playoffs, I think they're in trouble. The Islanders are the kind of team that can, they're going to be disciplined enough where the Bruins won't be able to kind of jump on their opponent's mistakes, and the Islanders will have the goaltending edge. So depends on who they play. I have no problem fading the Bruins. Maybe I'm stubborn, but if they do play the Islanders, then I think that's a bad matchup for them.
I'll say this. I had a good friend of mine who went to Vegas, and she said, I want to put $50 on something. I want to bet one thing. I told her, bet the Bruins to win the Eastern Conference. It was a horrible price, but, I mean, she doesn't bet, and it's $50. She got it at plus 395. Boston wins the Stanley Cup. They probably don't lose more than 5 games the entire postseason.
All right, there we go. Okay. So, there you go. Alex, just know that of all the things said here, now we're building a portfolio of clips that I'm going to have. I'm going to bring up at points in the playoffs. Rob and Alex Moretto talking about how the Rangers are frauds. Now, this one is now being added into the portfolio. Bruins win the cup and lose. You said maximum 5 games?
They won't lose. They won't lose more than 5 games the entire postseason.
All right, so there you go. So bank on that. I'm putting that in the little clips folder that I'm building out for the playoffs, and we'll hang on to that one for later. We'll just see how this plays out. But, guys, thanks so much for doing this. I'm sorry that you had to relive the pain of these bets, but one of the most important things that we do here on this show and as a part of the Hammer Betting Network is transparency. You place bets, they lose. You be honest about it. What happened? What went wrong? We can relive that and learn from these mistakes moving forward. So next year, we're not betting on a team to miss the playoffs or go 98.5 points, and they have 125 with 5 games remaining and locked up the President's Trophy with 2 weeks left. But I'm just kidding there. But we'll have we'll have transparency here on the show that is important to us. So relive those, break those things down. Hopefully everyone watching enjoyed this. If you had Bruins futures as well, please let us know in the comments what you had. If you were on a similar side to Alex and So Money, or if you were on the opposite side, make sure to let us know in the comments here on this video. Like this video, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe here to the Edgework YouTube channel. We do daily live NHL shows, so smash that like button, hit that subscribe button. Don't miss out on all the picks and previews that we do, as well as we get closer to the playoffs and we know the matchups, we know the prices, we know the spreads of the series. We will do previews of each series coming up, so you're not going to want to miss those. Maybe get a head start on some of your playoff betting there. So all that will be happening here on the Hammer Betting Network's Edgework YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in here today. Good luck on your bets throughout the rest of the regular season, and I will see you guys as we get closer to playoff time.